Okay, we're back. Okay, so we moved back to Utah, and we moved to a house in Taylorsville. And Leanne, who was always old for her age, got to go to school. But Patty didn't. She had already started kindergarten, but she had to wait for a year and a half until she could go to the 6-week kindergarten, because that's the way the deadlines fell in Utah. And we really liked it in Taylorsville, but Patty, bless her heart, had to stay home for such a long time to start school, and it made it so that Leanne was 2 years ahead of her in school, and that was good, probably. Let me think.
One thing I remember, two things I remember about that Taylorsville home. One was the cute playhouse that you made one Christmas.
Yeah, we bought cardboard kitchen things and made the room in the downstairs level. It was a tri-level house there in Taylorsville, and that Christmas, the girls got cardboard kitchen appliances and stuff for the basement.
And their bedroom. Many an hour down there.
Yeah, you did. And also there were stars and a moon up in your bedroom ceiling. I remember that. And we really liked Taylorsville. Taylorsville was a great place, but there was one problem. Burton was really into fallout shelters and just really wanted to have a fallout shelters. And the water level was a little high in Taylorsville. And this 3-level home that we rented from Weaver, was that their name?
No.
We couldn't do a bomb shelter because the water level was too high. And so we looked for a lot in Taylorsville, and they had not divided up or subdivisioned it at all. And we couldn't get any place in Taylorsville at all. But Burton had a friend that he had been on a mission with, Glenn Seeley and Jean, and they lived over in Taylorsville on Market Street. And Glenn worked for Galaxy Realty and had connections with Your Lot Builder. And we decided that we would build a home. And so we contracted to have a home built out in Hunter. And after they got it up a ways, we discovered that the floor plan had been changed. And they made it so you had to go through the kitchen itself, the little narrow aisle of the kitchen, to get into the dining area or into the basement. And the original plan had the door come in so you could go right downstairs or right into the dining room, past the kitchen area. And I just said, no, you changed the floor plan on us. We won't take that at all. And so we went back to the drawing board on where we would have a lot. And there was a lot just off from Redwood Road and about 48 South that we seriously considered. And then decided it was a little too close to Redwood. And it's good we didn't choose that lot, because we would have had to have sold the home to the Slick College, because it moved in there, about 15 years later. And so there was an area up on Upper Market Street was supposed to be a real posh, best area in Granger, and it really was a nice area. And Glenn thought he could get us a lot there. And so we decided that we would build the home on Market Street. And we chose the lot, and we're happy with it. And then Glenn didn't tie that lot up soon enough. It was the lot the Ericksons built on, which was just south of where we had to take the lot. And so we took the lot at 3883 Market Street, and Your Lot Builders started building it. Now,
all right, two more things in Taylorsville, just since we're on kind of me. One is you were avid about education.
Oh, yes. And
we had a bookmobile.
Mm-hmm. And you had library cards, and we went to the bookmobile. And I was also...
Yeah, you were really good
became
about
very
that.
active in the PTA at that time, too.
And I had my Thumbelina doll.
Oh, you had a Thumbelina doll.
And she was such an important part of my life. So you may now move on.
Okay. I was pregnant again. And when I had been expecting Cindy, the doctor in California had told me I shouldn't have any more children because when he first saw me, I felt he had one hand on his wallet and the other hand on a scalpel because he looked at me. My back was turned to him when he came in the room, and he said, "My gosh, lady, you're pregnant. Look at those legs." My veins were so bad, and so he told me throughout my pregnancy that I shouldn't have any more children. But when we got back to Utah, and I got back to Dr. Robert Hall, who was just a saint, and I loved him. He was such a good doctor, and he had been the one that did the dilation and curament that made me have my health back. And he said, "You know, you'll be miserable, but I will see you through." And I had to explain to him that my patriarchal blessing said that I would be a mother of man, and 3 girls did not constitute man. And so we tried for another baby. And of course, in those days, you had no way of knowing what the sex of the baby was or predicting it. Or I used some of the old wives' tale trying to get a boy. And the baby was due about the same time the house should be finished, but they were a little slow in getting the house finished, so we didn't get to move into the house on Market Street until the week before Bart was born. We had a lot of problems when the house was being built because the builder tried to change things and cut corners, and I wanted more electric outlets and more lights and more things done, and then Burton and I had a problem on, insulation. I wanted the house to be insulated, not just to have the drywall with the aluminum on the back of it. I wanted to have actual insulation between that wide, thick brick and the house. And I didn't get it, and we paid for it 100 times over. It would have been so much better if we had had insulation put into the house. And then one time, her hair was big as a barn, and I went over to the house, and Alice Fox, bless her heart, lived next door, and her house was finished, and I would call her and say, "Are they working on the house today?" And she would, so good to keep us informed as to what was going on. So one day I went over there and decided I'd better go down in the basement and find out if the walls were in the right place and if things had been put where they should. And so the stairs weren't in yet, and I climbed down this ladder, and sure enough, they had the plumbing for the downstairs bathroom just where the door had to be. And so I told them that they couldn't go there because that's where the door was going to be, and they wouldn't be able to get in the bathroom if the toilet was sitting right there. And I had to put up quite a fuss, but they finally did move it. And so that was taken care of. There were just so many things that they tried to change. And one of the things that they did to this day I regret is they did not use screws in putting the drywall up. And so you can see where most of the holes are, where the nails are. It was a short time after that, I think, that they really started using nothing but screws. But your lot builder used nails, and I was not happy with that. But the week before Bart was born, why, we did move into the house, and it was a quagmire to get into it because they hadn't poured the cement driveway and a few other things that they didn't have done. But Jane and Glenn went with us to the study groups because our good friends from East Mill Creek that we had been doing study groups with, except for the time we were in California, but when we come home, from California, we'd always take a trip up to Bear Lake with them and stayed close to them. But we had Jean and Glenn go to the study group with us, and we had been to study group on the night of the 8th of April in 1962, and I knew that my time to deliver was getting close, and I was kind of in half labor, but we went to it anyway.
But wait, who helped you move in? Certainly you, I mean, with you that pregnant, you know.
Well, as always, I did most of it myself. Big and pregnant or no, Burton helped. And I can't remember whether we just got a truck and moved. Probably Stan helped us, because Stan helped us move back from California, and he really went with Burton back down to California to move our furniture back up to Utah. And so I would imagine that it was probably Stan and Emmylou they helped us.
Okay.
Because they always did. All right. Bart was, well, I got to tell this story about Bart's birth. We didn't know what the baby was going to be because they didn't have ultrasounds in those days. And so I said to Dr. Hall, don't you tell Burton what the birth of the child is. I want to tell him.
You mean what the sex of the child?
Or what the sex of the child is, yes. And so he didn't, and he was with them when they wheeled me out. And so I said to Burton, well, Burton, this one came with outside plumbing. And we were so tickled after 3 girls who we really loved and welcomed all 3 of them into the world, that we were just over the moon getting a boy finally, especially where me having the child was so difficult. And I did have a lot of problem through the pregnancy with my bad legs and back and etc. And so we had a son finally, and he occupied the yellow room, and the girls occupied the pink room, and Burton and I had the master bedroom. And the house was really nice, and we really did enjoy it. Now, go down till Bart is about 4 months old, and he was a good baby and easy to raise, and we had a nice washer and dryer, and things were really, really good. But I went to a PTA meeting, and Cy Holmes was the principal of Granger Elementary, and he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have got 4 sessions of first grade and only 1 teacher, and the teacher teaches a morning session and an afternoon session, but I've got another morning session and afternoon session that I don't have a teacher for, and school starts in 4 days, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I thought about it and talked to Burton about it, and then told him that I would take one of those first grade sessions until they could get a warm body. And I knew a woman by the name of Shirley Reese who had quite a bit of college, and she would probably be willing to take the afternoon session of it. And so I would wean Bart later, but during those first few months, why, I would nurse him in the morning, and then Elaine Erickson would come and take care of him. And then I'd come home from teaching a first grade section and nurse him again. Cindy was in, I guess, what by then? She was in kindergarten by then.
No, I was in
first
kindergarten
grade.
when you first started.
Yes, that's right.
So Cindy would have.
Cindy had to be taken care of then. Cindy and Bart had to be taken care of. And so I did that until Christmas time, and I got a letter of authorization because a third of my major was child education, early childhood education, and I had also had a year of teaching high school and 2 years of teaching college. And so I had no problem getting a letter of authorization. But Shirley didn't have enough college, and she didn't have the teaching experience I had. And so Cy Holmes said, well, why don't you take both sections of first grade? You're doing a great job. And I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The kids hadn't been taught any of their sounds, none of their numbers, and parents really didn't in those days do much with it. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so we decided that I would, and we would finish the basement with the money that I made. And so, no, it wasn't finished the basement that year, that was later. And so I did. I taught both sections of first grade. I had to wean Bart. And then Carol Fowler took care of the kids. And that was a much better situation than Elaine Erickson. The kids really felt like she was too cross and ornery. And so...
You better tell them about me going to Hercules.
That's what happened. Burton wants me to tell you about going to Hercules. When we were living over in Taylorsville, Burton found out that Hi and Pete hadn't been entirely honest with him, and there was some competition between the company that they had farmed and Heiko. And so some of the people there in Taylorsville mentioned to him that Hercules was hiring people, and Burton knew one of the men down there, Billings Brown, and he talked to him about it and went and interviewed and got a job at Hercules. And that was just wonderful because it was $600 a month, and in those days that was good money. And so he went to work at Hercules, and that really helped us to get the house. That was one of the deciding factors of being able to buy a house. And so Burton had a good job. I had a good job. We were still tight on money because we had 4 children and a new house that needed landscaping and fencing and curtains and carpet and all of that type of thing. But I thoroughly enjoyed my year of teaching first grade. It was a good year. I loved seeing those kids progress. And one of the students I taught, first name was Cal, and I can't remember his last name, but he was so smart and such a good student. And when he graduated from high school, he was actually valedictorian of Patty's class. And his parents had Francesco's pizza place there. And so that was a good year of teaching for me. But at the end of that year, I decided that I better not teach the next year. I needed to be home with the kids. And so I ended my teaching career at that point and stayed home and became very active in PTA, and I had big church jobs, and so I was very busy. And then we started into our next child. And so
So you, well, oh,
turn it off for right now.